Welcome to Data Saturday Oslo 2021. Do you sometimes think that the world is moving so fast that you're struggling to keep up? Does that make you feel a little uncomfortable? Awesome. Now, you may be thinking, no, that's not awesome. I don't like feeling this way. But it is awesome because if you feel uncomfortable because you can't keep up, that means that you have ambitions. You want to learn new things. You want to take that next step in your career, and you want to achieve your goals. And I know one thing about you, even though I can't see you right now, and that is that you can do anything if you set your mind to it. I also know that it's probably not going to be easy because any kind of personal growth requires some discomfort, unfortunately. Welcome to I Can't Keep Up, Turning Discomfort into Personal Growth in a Fast-Paced World. My name is Katrine Wilhelmsen, or Catherine Wilhelmsen, and my pronouns are she and her. I work as a consultant specializing in Azure Data Factory, Azure Synapse Analytics, and the good old BIML and SSIS combo. And because I like to speak and blog about those topics, I'm also a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. You can follow me on Twitter at CatherineW, and I blog on catherinew.net. This is who I am today. But if we rewind a couple of years, let's go back to 2012. Things were kind of different for me. I hadn't discovered the community yet. I was just a regular employee going to work, doing my job, enjoying it, and then going back home at the end of the day, probably doing something like playing World of Warcraft or something. But back then, in 2012, there was one event that I can remember fairly well, and that was the launch of SQL Server 2012. This was an event that my coworkers and I had looked forward to for months, I think at least weeks. And this was kind of a big deal. It was a big event. There were, hundreds, maybe even thousands of people gathered to watch these sessions, the announcements, and learn about all the new features. And back then, SQL Server 2012 had a couple of main features or parts to it. You had the database engine, the relational engine, of course. You also had some of the BI components that I was working with, things like integration services, analysis services, and reporting services. But all of these things were bundled into the product called SQL Server 2012. It was one package, it was launched as one product, and you installed it as one product with different features. And when I wanted to learn this, when I was like, yay, I can finally learn this, let's go from 2008 R2 to 2012, I bought a set of books. And I sat down and I spent a while, reading each book, taking a certification exam. And I think I spent probably over a year just going through all of that. And I could do that at a fairly slow pace while learning things at work as well. If we go back to today, back to 2021, the world is a little different. So right now, instead of just having SQL Server 2012 and a big launch of that, the world is now separated into all of these different products and services and features and offerings. And it is a fantastic world to be a part of. It is amazing to have all of these cool products and new shiny things and things to learn and things that are solving problems that we couldn't do back then. But it also means that it's slightly more different to keep up with all of these things. So if I want to go and learn about something, I might look at the Azure updates page to get all the latest Azure updates. I might have to go to the Power BI blog for all of those updates. And there are quite a few updates that you can read at any given time. And in addition to that, you don't only have those official blogs and resources and product announcements. You have for each of these products, you have release notes and updates and tweets and videos and all of this amazing content that is available to us right now. And this can be kind of overwhelming because, now you have to look at 4 different blogs. You have to look at all the release notes being on GitHub or inside the product. And then you have all these videos with amazing content that you have to set aside time for. You have to follow along on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and all of this can cause quite a lot of discomfort. And I don't know about you, but I'm feeling kind of uncomfortable right now just talking about this, because even as I'm explaining this to you, I get the feeling that I can't keep up. There is no way that I can keep up with all of these things. Even just trying to take all of these screenshots, I was like, oh, I actually haven't read half of these things because I haven't had time for it. And because there is so much content available, you might also have the same feeling that I have, that everyone knows more than me. I get this feeling all the time. And the reason for that, obviously, is because people do publish blog posts and they create videos and they share content on the things that, is their expertise, which I don't know much about. So I get the impression all the time that everyone knows everything and I'm just stuck with my own little corner down here. And also, you might get the feeling that your skills are outdated. I'm hoping that you don't, but this is something that I feel. Learning new things, having specialized and focused for so many years on things like SSIS and BIML, and then suddenly, no one really uses it anymore, is the feeling I get, because now everyone are talking about the new products and the new offerings and the new services. And all of this can get you in that little frazzled state of mind. And if that happens, stop. And I had to add this next slide for myself. Remember to breathe, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed, to have all of these feelings that there is just so much out there and you can't keep up with it. And that is actually the reality. You can't keep up with everything. There is no way that you can keep up with everything today, because there are so many new things and so many things happening so frequently that you can't. And you kind of just have to accept that and live with that discomfort. And the secret is that none of us can. I can't. I can guarantee you that every single speaker that you'll see here today have some of these same feelings that, yes, I might be speaking on this topic, but I know nothing about this topic over here. And what happens if you get to that frazzled mind, where you get to that part where, it's just too much discomfort? So we all have our comfort zones. Inside of our comfort zone, it's this nice little box that we're living in every day. It's comfortable in here. That's what the name says. This is a place where we feel confident in our skills. We feel confident in our experiences and our knowledge. And we kind of want to stay inside of here naturally because, nothing is stressing us in here. It's fine in here. But if you have all of those thoughts and feelings, it's kind of like you're having some kind of external force or pressure. It might not be a person, but there is some kind of pressure that is kind of pulling and pushing you outside of your comfort zone. And that comfort zone is suddenly very far away. And it is, you get into this alarmed state of mind where, oh, this is too much. This is too uncomfortable. This is getting way too overwhelming. And what happens on many occasions, and this has happened to me, is that sometimes you end up just withdrawing into your comfort zone, but also reducing it again. And this has happened to me several times where you kind of go, oh, this was way too much, too overwhelming. I'm going to go back to the things that I know, the things I'm comfortable with, but I'm also going to go back to the core of that, because right now this has been too stressful for too long. I'm just going to stay here for a little bit. And you don't want that. This is a key part of burnout, where you feel like you're losing control over what's happening, and we don't want that. Instead, we want you to experience just enough discomfort, because you need some of it. And we want you to, let's start from scratch again, inside of your comfort zone. But instead of having all of that external pressure kind of pushing and pulling you, you need to take control over your own experience. And if you choose from within you to go, you know what, I can push myself a little bit. I can experience a little discomfort right now. I'm okay with this. And you're pushing a little bit, and it's gradual and it's slow, and you're not going to get those overwhelming feelings. And at some point you're going to be like, this wasn't too bad. And, my comfort zone is a little bit bigger now. And then you can keep going and you can push a little bit more and a little bit more. And at some point, you're going to end up thinking that, hey, this is actually really okay. I'm okay with this. My comfort zone is now way bigger than it was at the start. And this is the entire goal of the session today. I want to encourage all of you to push and nudge yourself gradually to get that personal growth. So a little discomfort every day feels like very little progress every day. That's the entire goal of it. And if you're in the middle of it, it feels like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing any of these big things. But at some point, you're going to go and look back at what you've done and see that, over the past year, I've actually grown a lot. So if you want to apply that to personal skills or soft skills or core skills, you can do that. But for this session right now, we're at Data Saturday Oslo. So I'm going to focus on one thing specifically, and that is personal growth through learning and keeping up with the tech world. And there are a couple of things that I've learned to do to kind of get that gradual progression that I'm looking for. So the first thing is to prioritize. For me, with so many new shiny things and pretty colorful icons and all of these offerings, I get the feeling that I want to learn all of these things. These things are cool, they're exciting, they're new, and I really just want to dig into it and understand it. And these are the things that I want to learn. So maybe I want to learn Azure Purview and Power BI and Power Apps and Databricks and Azure Synapse and all of these offerings. But if I slow down and I think about it, what do I need to learn? I can probably scratch Power Apps off my list because it's not something that I'm going to work with. I'm an IT professional. Let's leave Power Apps to, more of the business users who can get more value out of that. And if I ask myself, kind of like if I had a 4-year-old, like really asking questions all the time, what do I really need to learn? I can pretty much scratch off Power BI and Databricks as well, because I have coworkers and friends and people in my network who know these things. So I can kind of feel the weight off my shoulders right now, thinking that I don't need to learn this thing. I don't really need to learn these things because I can trust the people in my network to be there and to help me if I get to that point. So, a couple of more pounds off my shoulders. And then the final thing is, what do I really need to learn now? And in my case, again, Purview is probably not something that I need to learn now. So I'm ending with, Azure Synapse. That's the thing that I really need to learn now. And just by focusing on that, it might seem like an obvious thing when you get to this point, but you kind of have to drill into it and get to that point where you can go, this is my priority right now. So I don't have to read all of the product updates and release notes and announcements and follow all the videos and all the tweets on these other topics right now. I can focus on this one thing. And when you have that top priority, you can start breaking it down into goals for yourself of getting to that next level. So first thing, define your milestones, define your tasks. And if you're an IT pro, which I'm guessing many of us are, you're kind of going to go, oh, I don't want to do this because I have so many experiences with sprint planning and things like that. But you don't have to estimate any of these tasks. So that's a plus. But for yourself, I want you to think about the milestones, the big kind of like things you can tick off your list. So if you're looking at something that's technical, it might be first milestone is to understand the concepts, understand the basics, and be able to explain that to myself. And then the next level could be configure the basics, actually using it and starting to understand how things work more on a technical level. And the third milestone could be that final step of looking into the more advanced things, like how do I optimize performance? How do I reduce costs? But you don't have to start there. You can set those milestones for yourself and then start creating tasks for each of these. And at this point, you can go into many details or a few details. I just want you to be aware of it so you have kind of some goals that you can get to at some point, instead of it just being, I need to learn Azure Synapse, because that's fairly vague, and it's going to be difficult to say, yes, I know Azure Synapse by now. It's much easier to say, I know how to optimize performance. You want to block out your calendar for this. And we all have our own lives. We have families and hobbies and things that we do outside of work and outside of community things. So think about how much time you're willing to put into this and able to put into this. If you can set aside an hour every day, you're very fortunate. That's going to give you a lot of progression. A lot of people can't do that. So maybe you only have a couple of hours every week. Maybe it's during weekends before the family wakes up, or maybe it's one evening where you can, unwind and focus on something else and what you do every day. Maybe it's even just one day a month. But whatever you do, make sure that you block out your calendar and do that regularly. So you have that, you can always, when the next block is in your calendar, so you can set aside time and kind of prepare for the next part. And then keep going. You have your milestones, you have your time. You're going to sit down and you're going to be like, okay, this is my 1 hour today or my 1 day a month, and I'm going to focus on the first task on my list. Single tasks only, and remove those distractions. You do not want to pick up your phone and start scrolling on Twitter or watch something in the background while you're trying to do something else. For that hour or that half day or that day, focus entirely on the task. You want to get as much out of that time as possible. And one of the key things for me is when your time is up, stop. Just stop that task and continue the next time, because you don't want it to be too much either. And the third one is getting the most out of that time that you're spending. Do you want to optimize your learning? Like I said, remove distractions. That's, rule number one. Don't scroll on Twitter while you're trying to listen to something, because you're not going to actually pay attention to that. But I want you to also think about, how do you take in new information in the best possible way? Is it easier for you to read something? Focus on blogs, look up documentation. Then I want you to focus on that and make that your way of taking in new information. Maybe it's easier for you to watch videos and watch demos and look at how other people solve problems. In that case, just skip the docs and go find all the amazing content on YouTube or Pluralsight. Or maybe you prefer listening while doing some physical activity. That helps me quite a bit when I can listen to a podcast, or maybe even just listen to one of the technical videos while I'm vacuuming or doing the dishes or something else, because doing something physical kind of releases that energy that helps me concentrate more on what I'm actually thinking about. And how do you turn that information that you're taking in into knowledge? Because if you listen and watch and read and you spend all that time and everything just slides back out, it's kind of pointless, right? So think about, how do you do that? If you're one of the rare people who can listen or read or watch something and then just, I know this now, I envy you, by the way. If you can do that, that's amazing. You're probably going to be like way ahead of me in 2 days from now. But most people probably have to at least try it themselves. They have to replicate it. They have to sit down, maybe write some code or push some buttons and change some configuration and see what happens. Or if you're like me, you might need more practice. You might have to spend more time actually going through it a couple of times before it sticks. But just make sure that you're aware of this so you don't end up spending an hour listening to something and the next day it's gone. And then the final step of optimizing your learning, this could be a whole session in itself, because this is all about sharing that knowledge and teaching others, because that is going to deepen your understanding. And you can do this in multiple levels as well. So maybe it's enough for you to just talk to someone about it and discuss what you've learned. Maybe you can talk to a coworker who's going through something similar as you, and you can talk about things that you might not really understand, try and explain it, and then you're going to be like, oh, I get it now because we talked about this. Maybe you want to start a blog. Maybe writing is easier for you. And just the entire process of, taking in and absorbing that information, understanding it, and then explaining it in a different way through writing, having to find the right words, the right phrasing, that is an excellent way of deepening your own understanding. And the final step, and I know this is not for everyone, but maybe it is for you. Maybe you want to try speaking. Maybe I get to see you at Data Saturday next year in Oslo, hopefully in person, delivering a session on something that you've learned over the past year. This is probably going to cause a lot of discomfort for some of you as well, but it is an option because I can guarantee you if you're standing in front of someone trying to teach them, you want to make sure that you understand that concept before doing that. So that's kind of like the final step way over there if you feel comfortable with it. But maybe start inside your own company. Do a 10-minute lunch and learn or something like that. It's going to help you understand that even more. So the next time you've set aside some time, you can start on the next task and the next item on your checklist. So since we're at Data Saturday Oslo, we can kind of summarize these three final parts of optimizing your learning into a data pipeline just for your brain. So you have your input, you have your processing, and you have your output. Fairly simple concept to take in and to understand. It's a little more difficult when you actually have to go out and do the work. But if you keep this in mind, how do I take things in? How do I process it? And how can I deepen that understanding by sharing it and outputting it? You're going to get to a very good start with your own learning. And this is something that we need to do more often now. I think that one of the most important skills today is learning to learn. So finding that process that works for you is going to be key going forward. And I kind of want you to start today. I want you to start now at Data Saturday Oslo, and I want you to focus throughout the day. I have a little challenge for you. I want you to pick one session today that you know nothing or very little about yet. It's going to be going in and logging on to that session and kind of going in like, I don't know anything, I don't have any hooks, or this is not something that's entirely relevant to me. But I want you to pick that session and then focus 100% on learning as much as possible in that session today. I want you to, apply the things that you know, listen, watch, maybe walk around while listening, I don't know, take notes if you need to, and just make sure that you get the most out of that hour today. And then share what you learned. And again, apply the level that you're comfortable with. Maybe you want to just take notes and share it with someone else. Maybe you want to share it with coworkers on Monday when you get back to work. Or you can share it on Twitter by tagging DataSat Oslo and using the hashtag DataSat Oslo. But share something that you learned and start practicing in a very friendly and easy way of just sharing the things that you take in. So this is a challenge for you today. And if you don't do it, I don't really know, so I can't really go and hunt you down for not doing that, but I hope to see more tweets throughout the day. So at this point, you can also start rethinking the way that you think about things or reframing them. So instead of saying, I can't keep up with all of these things, you can go, I'll keep up with this, or I don't have time. No, I have time for that. And this is much easier once you have those priorities and those milestones. And if you ever get the feeling that, everyone knows more than me, think of it in a different way. Think about how much you can learn from others. And if you feel like your skills are outdated, I get to expand my skill set. And this is probably one of the most basic psychological tricks of just, changing the way you think about things. And it might sound obvious, but if you practice this and you think about it this way, it's going to get easier as you go along. So some of the key takeaways from the session, you have to do the work yourself. I can remind you, I can give you a couple of things where you can start, but you have to do this yourself. But make sure that you take one step at a time. Don't try and take on too much. This is like if you want to climb to a top of a mountain, you're not going to do that in one jump, right? You're going to take one step, one climb, and get there gradually. So one step at a time, and celebrate each of your wins. This is something that I'm terrible at, because once I take that step, I'm going to be like, oh, I have a new goal and a new goal. And my friends keep telling me that you're pushing the goalpost here. Like, you need to kind of take a little break here, because you're never going to get to where you want to be if you keep just pushing. So stop once in a while and celebrate each of your wins. And again, this is going to be a lot easier if you have some of those milestones from the start that you can actually check off on a list. And actively reflect on how far you've come. So gradually or periodically, maybe it's every month, every 6 months, every year, just take a break. And, you might have a long way to go to get to the top of that mountain. But if you turn around and you look down, you're going to see that you're actually kind of far up already. But it's just so easy to forget that if you keep looking up. So make sure that you reflect on how far you've come. And again, this is something that could be easier if you have a blog where you go, hey, I wrote 10 blog posts, I actually made some progress here. And the final thing that I want to mention today is that we're still in a pandemic. It's been a year and a half of a difficult situation for all of us, working from home, trying to find a new way of doing our jobs. Family situations, probably many personal things that can be very difficult to deal with. All of that is kind of things that you can't control. And I want you to be aware that it is okay to just stay in your comfort zone for a while. If that is what you need to do right now, then do that. Because if you try to push and you're not ready for that, those alarms are going to go off anyway. So it's okay to stay in your comfort zone. You don't always have to be on this journey of growing and learning and expanding your skills. You need to be ready for that. It's okay to just get through the day. It's okay to go to work and do your job and go home and not think about it for the rest of the day. It's completely okay. If you want to, do some learning at the end of the day, then that's great. But it is okay to relax for a bit. And it is okay to just breathe. Because this can be overwhelming. This world is fast-paced right now. You need to learn how to learn, but you don't always have to do that. So it's okay to breathe once in a while. And I hope that for the rest of the day, you can pick up one or two of these things, take that challenge, take me up on that, and prove to me that, this is something that you can do and that you want to do, and enjoy it for yourself as well. Focus on the learning, focus on the session, get the most out of it so you feel like today was a good day. That's all I have to say for today. I know that you can do anything you want if you set your mind to it, and I know that you've got this. You just need to do the work, and you need to allow yourself to feel a little uncomfortable, but just a little bit every day, and you'll get there eventually. That's it for me. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Data Saturday Oslo.